Thank you. I'm going to put myself on do not disturb, which is what I should have done in the last one because I saw in the comments that people were hearing all of my Discord notifications going off during. I know we all have those Discord dings happening nonstop these days. Okay, well, I'm going to pass over the letting people in to one of my amazing co-hosts so that I can get us started. Maybe my computer doesn't start freaking out on me. Okay, we're good. First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to Maryland Spring 2022. It's a weird way of saying that, 2022 Teen Connect Conference. This session is sustainable programming. So if you did not mean to be in sustainable programming, you clicked on the wrong link. We will not be offended if you swap, although feelings might be hurt. This session is going to be led by our presenters, Tyler Chadwell English and Eileen Foley-Breck from Frederick County Public Libraries, Jake Cherapika from Baltimore County Public Library, and Tori George from Calvert Libraries. To see their full bios, please go to our Teen Connect website. My name is Isaiah West, and I am your Zoom host for this session. I am sure we are all familiar with Zoom at this point, but I've been in a lot of meetings where these things need to be said, so I'm going to go over them anyway. In your bottom left-hand corner, if you're on a laptop, you have the option for mute and also to stop your video. Please mute yourself while you're not talking. As we all saw, I can mute everyone if needed, but I hate doing it. So just be aware if you accidentally unmute yourself. Feel free to stop your video as well if you'd like, although we love seeing faces. So if you're able to have your video on, we would love to see you. If you are calling in via phone, you can use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. During our presentations, please use the chat to ask your questions. You can also raise your hand at the end during our Q&A section. To raise your hand, you select the reaction button or press *9 if calling in via phone. In the top right-hand corner, if you're on a laptop, you can also choose between the speaker view and a gallery view. Since we will be in presentation mode, you'll probably want to keep that in speaker view so that you can see the presentation. If you're having any tech issues at any point, please share in the chat and someone from our planning committee will be there to assist you. While we are getting started, we ask that you please fill out the sign-in sheet that Kevin has just dropped in the chat and will continue to drop in the chat periodically through this presentation. We ask that you put your email and your with your email address in this so that you can get your CE forms. We also ask that you introduce yourself with your name and your library in the chat. After this session, we will send CE forms, an evaluation, and a recording via email. Today will be part presentation and part discussion, which means there will be plenty of time for questions at the end. We do ask that you hold your questions until all the presentations are finished. If you're worried that you will forget, please drop it in the chat and we will answer them later on in the session. If you don't see an immediate response, just remember, we're saving all those questions for the very end. When it's time for the Q&A portion, you're welcome to raise your hand, or you can just type in the chat. We had a lot of people just typing in the chat this morning, but we encourage people to raise your hand so that we can hear voices. But we do ask that you wait to be called on if you do raise your hand, just so that we can be sure that everyone gets a chance to speak and that we can get to people in the order that they asked their questions. Before we get started, we want to go over a couple of our agreements, and I don't have the slides up, that's my bad. No one told me anything that I was doing it wrong, so oops. So for our ropes agreements, I'm going to try to do this from memory. So if I forget one, just let me know and I will get to it. But the ropes agreements are just for us to be sure that we are all aware and on the same page when we enter into an open discussion. So for ropes, it is an acronym where R stands for respect. We ask that you respect others as well as respect yourself when in these conversations. The O has a couple of meanings. The first one is be open. We would love for you to be open and honest and use all of your candor in these conversations. But at the same time, we understand that those oops and ouchies might happen. Oh, thank you so much. Oops and ouchies do happen from time to time, and that's part of the growth experience. The P stands for participate and pass. Both of these are equally important. We want you to participate in the conversation that we're having, but we also want you to realize that there are other voices that might need to be heard. So just be aware of how much you're participating so that everyone gets a chance. The E stands for escuchar, which is Spanish for to listen. It's key when any conversation is happening. There is the time to talk and there is the time to listen. The E is for experience. Be open to new experiences and new ideas. And the S is for both sensitive and safe space. We want to create a place that is safe, but we also want to create a place that is brave. So we want people to be sensitive to both of those ideas. There is also a Padlet that we will be using as a networking tool. I will drop that in the chat as soon as I'm finished speaking. And we ask that everyone please fill it out so that if people hear an idea or something that you're doing at your library, they can reach out with questions that they might have for you. And without further ado, I am going to turn it over to our first presenter, which is Jake.
Hi, everyone. Let me just get my screen share going. And it should, from the beginning, there we go. Okay, so my name is Jake. I work for the Baltimore County Public Library. I'm just going to share a little bit about what sustained programming means to me, and it's my primary method of programming, so it's something that I use a lot in the library. These are some benefits for it. It creates a predictable schedule for your teens to follow and keep coming back to. A lot of the different libraries I've worked in, I feel like our social media presence and our marketing isn't always geared with teens in mind. And so it's really important to have a repeating schedule that they can predict so that they can keep coming to the program. Otherwise, they don't know when the next program is. So I really like having a repeating schedule that's predictable, because then even if they miss one session, they know when the next one is. It allows time for a program to grow. A lot of my successful programs start with 1 or 2 or 3 teams and then slowly snowball into bigger and bigger groups. And so the repeating patterns of having the same programs really allows that growth and allows the word of mouth to spread, which is, I think, the most effective way to get teens to come and keep coming to a program. Most of my, like I said, successful teen programs really start slow, and it takes a couple of months of going for the people who showed up the first time to start bringing another friend and then another friend, and it reaches a certain size where it just takes on its own life and it sort of just goes. But that takes time, and so a sustained program really allows that. And then I think importantly, if you have predictable repeating programs, it helps build a relationship with the community that isn't always easy to build if you're doing one-off or really big programs occasionally. For instance, my next slide is going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, but I also do an anime club pretty regularly. And so a lot of the teens, even if they can't make it to anime club, know to come to me for manga recommendations or show recommendations. Even the teachers who have popped in and watched them when the anime clubs were virtual sort of know to tap me and will send emails asking for feedback. And so it helps build those communities because you get a reputation of knowing a couple of subjects that you're repeating kind of the programming for. And purely from a use standpoint, I find repeating programs much easier on myself planning wise, because I don't have to recreate everything every single time I'm doing it. And the ability to be able to just, okay, I know what this is going to be like. Let me just in an hour put something together and then I can do it is really important, especially now when I feel like all libraries are short staffed. So a successful example of sustainable programming that I've had is Dungeons and Dragons in the library. I've done this in 3 different branches, and my groups have varied from 6 people all the way up to 25 people. It really allows, one of the things I love about just any sort of gaming program is it really allows the teens and the participants to grow comfortable with me and each other as they sort of navigate through the game. And those friendships and bonding really is a really fun thing to see. And I think gaming and D&D specifically creates a very central language where people from all different walks of life are coming to the game and experiencing it on roughly even footing. And you have people from very diverse groups becoming friends through this game. I've had homeschoolers meet public school kids and share each other's numbers after a couple of weeks of attending. I've had kids from harsh economic backgrounds, wealthy kids, all sorts of different backgrounds coming together playing D&D, and then after a couple of months they all know each other and all very comfortable with each other, which is very cool to see. One of the benefits I find with D&D specifically too is that it very sneakily teaches skills that the teens are going to need later in life without it being a boring school activity. In our first session, Isaiah used the words, I think, we want to trick them into not knowing they're learning while they're learning, and D&D does that really well. When I first started doing it in the Aberdeen branch of Harford County Public Library, the teens I was working with didn't know how to use an index, a table of contents. They couldn't do basic math really fast, and we had to teach a little bit about basic statistics because in order to play D&D well, you need to be able to predict how successful your actions are going to be. None of those are earth-shattering skills to not have, but they're definitely going to help them a lot later on in life and even in school later on, because now they can go in an index and know how to use it when they see it, or a table of contents, or if they're doing other things that involve any sort of math, D&D has taught them some basic statistics and ways to calculate problem, how successful they'll be and stuff. But if this was a one-off, we wouldn't have the time to build up to that because it would just be too much to throw at them. For D&D specifically, my favorite way was running this once a week, but I've also had success running it once a month or twice a month. And it works really well with mixed age groups. Our current session's actually adult and teen, and it's really cool because parents will bring their preteen and teen kids and they'll bond together through D&D. And I can't think of another thing where you see a 14-year-old excited to go to somewhere and hang out with their parent with a bunch of peers for like 3 hours. I know that's really cool to see, and it creates some really fun cross-generational conversation. And so those are my thoughts on sustained programming.
Thank you, Jake. I'm sorry, Tyler, you gave me the order that people were going in, but it's already left my brain.
That's okay. I'm going next.
Okay.
Eileen and I are going next, so that'll make it easy. Give me just a second and I will begin sharing my screen. Okay, everybody's seeing what they're supposed to? Yes, great. Okay. I've already been introduced, so I'm not going to belabor that, but my name is Tyler Chadwell English. English, and my colleague that's presenting with me today is Eileen Foley-Breck, and we're going to be speaking about sustained programming using our Teen Library Council and our volunteer program as our examples, and how those help sustain programs. And my first slide, you guys have already essentially seen in my welcome this morning, but we define success and the value teens take from our TLC and the retention of our monthly attendees as they move from 6th to 12th grade. Eileen and I have come up with 4 factors that contribute to the sustainable effective programming in our system. And again, I went over these, so I'm just going to blow through them. Plus, you heard Isaiah mention a lot of these, and Jake and many other people mention a lot of these items as well. And that's, establishing one of the biggest factors of success for us is establishing a time and a day for specific programs. So Thursdays at FCPL Urbana branch are always teen programming days. So even if you can't remember what program you want to go to, if you show up on a Thursday at 6 o'clock, you're going to get a program pretty much. And we had some other times that we established for our clubs, like anime, manga, cosplay club was, which we called CAM, which was on Monday afternoons at 4. So, and it was always on Monday afternoons at 4. So what we did is we established a time and a place that was easier to remember by continually doing it on the same day and the same time. And again, and you saw this in this morning's presentation too, surveys like the one the presenter did this morning, figuring out, it was a marketing survey day, but it's still very similar. Finding out their interest through surveys is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. And one of the ways we did that is we took it to back to school nights, and we took it to, we had it in the library, and that offered them an opportunity to speak. Also having a TLC, which I'll talk more about in a second, helped as well. Boons such as food, creating opportunities for service learning hours, and a space. In our county, each teen must complete a certain amount of service hours to graduate. Our population at the Urbana Regional Branch also seek out hours for National Honor Societies. At Urbana, we manage a growing population of teen volunteers. They see us as a resource for making a difference in their own community and to receive their service hours for school. Our Teen Library Council regularly has attendance of 30 to 60 teens a month. All those who want to help shape teen resources and programming at the library, though the primary purpose of this is for teens to have input in teen library program, we also funnel our volunteering program and orientation through our TLC nights. We do this through our TLC committees and executive board, which has added leadership elements to our service. The goal is to expose teens to leadership experience that helps prepare them to be leaders in the classroom and in their careers. And what you're seeing here on your screen is just the volunteer sign out sheet of the Google form that I created, where I capture the hours that they do by having them sign out when they leave each time they successfully volunteered. So like I said, we funnel this through Teen Library Council Night, and TLC is a regularly monthly program that currently meets on the first Thursday of every month at 6 p.m. It typically consists of a guest speaker for the first 30 minutes, followed by TLC committee business and new volunteer orientation. We typically serve pizza, drinks, and snacks. And this has been funded through both business partnerships and Furl. And this morning we got a question, someone specifically said they had trouble getting money and they didn't have a friends group. So one of the things that you might be able to do without knowing your population is go, appeal to businesses. We advertise for the businesses that are willing to help give us boons for that night, food and snacks. Our TLC leadership program offers teens 2 ways to participate. Teen Library Council has 5 committees, and each committee has a chair, and that chair serves for 6-month terms. With any luck, these chairs will use this leadership position to apply for seats on the executive board, and the executive board has 5 positions that serve 1-year terms. The TLC exec board meets once a month, traditionally for an hour before the TLC program night, and then they lead our TLC nights. They are really in charge. Our exec board is really in charge of those once a month TLC nights. And they are in charge of doing the orientation, and this has helped them build a lot of skills, a lot of public speaking skills, oral communication skills, and getting initiative, problem solving, teamwork, delegation, collaboration, critical thinking, planning and executing ideas. And they've gotten that by participating as a leader in our group. So I am going to pass this along to my colleague Eileen now, because the next slide is hers.
Thank you, Tyler. The success of our volunteer program and our TLC really depends heavily on our school and community partnerships. You'll see 2 columns there. As someone personally who taught in the middle and the high school and who owned a business, I can speak with certainty that building and maintaining partnerships takes constant work. Our morning presenters really touched on this as well. Elizabeth and Christina stressed being the squeaky wheel. There's a lot of truth to that. When I owned my business, I received solicitations daily for gift cards, handouts, freebies, even partnership opportunities. Really the only solicitations that I took seriously were those that were done in person, the people that actually dropped in my store and wanted to talk with me about how I could help them and they could help me. Email solicitations and snail mail solicitations I generally ignored or threw away. You want those businesses and partnerships to always think of you for their events, and the only way to do that is to stay in constant contact with them. I have a curated email list of contacts with names from schools to PTSA to advertisers and even friends, and I send this email out monthly, if not more. And that email includes what's going on in the library, programs that are coming up, and even new things that the library system is rolling out or presenting. When working with your schools, the best advice I can give you is to think beyond your media specialists and your teachers. Guidance counselors are wonderful resources. They have contact with kids on a more personal basis. They know the requirements for student service learning hours, and they can advertise your programs for you. They can also reach out to teachers for you if they feel your program can benefit or enhance a particular curriculum. We did a babysitting program, and a guidance counselor reached out.
Eileen, sorry, I think you're muted.
Have I been muted the whole time? No?
No, just a
How
minute
did I
ago.
hit that? I don't know where I clicked out. Can anybody tell me the last thing they heard?
Babysitting program.
Okay. So the guidance counselor put those teachers who run those school babysitting programs in contact with us, and then we were able to advertise to them as well. Also, and I can't stress this enough, be extra nice to school secretaries and administrative support staff. I don't exaggerate when I say they can be the difference in if a school administrator receives your phone call or not. Learn their names, just like you do your teens, learn the names of the secretaries. So when you go into school, you can drop by their desk, say hello, greet them for a little while. It's really important. The PTSA is also a great resource for marketing because it's mostly staffed by parents. They have a vested interest in advertising for you. Get the emails of the PTSA president, vice president, secretary, include them on that monthly email distribution. See if you can come in and talk to a PTSA meeting for a few minutes quarterly, or at least once or twice a year, just to advertise the services and supports that you have for teens. Also, you want your schools to think of you when they have community events or in-house events, so that you can set up a table to advertise. There's a few listed here on this slide, just a few occasions that Tyler and I have attended. Tyler's also created a menu of programs, and we carry this menu with us every school we go to, every visit, community event. So we always have it on hand, and we can hand it out at every opportunity. This menu lists educational, supportive, and fun programs that we have prepared and that we can roll out and put on pretty easily. So when thinking of your community partners, I always consider, can they help me with my programs, with goods and services, or with marketing? Those that tick all three boxes, they're extra special. We arrange a speaker, like Tyler said, for every one of our monthly TLC programs. Every November, Tyler and I, we sit down, we brainstorm the year, think about themes or events for the year and try to match our speakers to those themes or events. Having those speakers then booked for the year, it really takes a heavy load off of us and helps us move on to more important things. A lot of community partners, they don't want to come out, they don't want to speak, but they often have goods that you can hand out. Pencils, stress balls, notebooks. Tyler and I, we have a box in our office. We collect all sorts of those freebies. We'll take anything that anybody will give us. Don't underestimate the power of a free sticker or a notebook, because even at the high school level, I've seen high school kids get pretty excited about a sticker and a free notebook. Like Tyler said, and some other people have said, restaurants new to the area may also provide you free food, especially if you give an opportunity to advertise for them or a shout out to them. We had a Manhattan Pizza move into our neighborhood, and they gave us a stack of $10 gift cards. Didn't mean anything to them, but it was a great advertising opportunity. So what we did was we turned that into a volunteer of the month through our TLC. And every month at TLC, we highlighted a volunteer of the month, and we gave them a certificate and a $10 Manhattan gift card. And they really loved that. They had a big kick out of that. Marketing programs can be hard because, of course, at our level, it all has to be free. So really think on the neighborhood level. We have a lot of those free neighborhood magazines, and they'll often give libraries shout outs for free. I'm thinking of those magazines like eLocal and those community magazines. In my neighborhood, it's I Am Still Living, Walkersville Living, things like that. Tyler and I have also joined all of our local Facebook groups. Of course, all the moms in the neighborhood join these groups, so they're great resources for getting out attendance at your programs. We must belong to, I don't know, 7 or 8 of those, and we always advertise in those Facebook programs. Finally, the last thing I'll say is do not be afraid to ask your friends. A lot of our speakers have come from our own personal contacts. Okay, next slide, Tyler. This is just a list of some of the speakers that we've used in the past. This list highlights what I said about using your friends. It's a personal friend of mine who owns the Money Mentor Group, and I asked them to speak to our TLC one month about money management. Another friend works for Frederick Hospital's Live Well Frederick program. They came out and spoke to our teens about healthy eating and sugar intake. Tyler and I stacked our Women in STEM panel with all personal friends who offered to help for us. C2 Education, they're not a personal friend, but they were a brand new business in our community. They actually came out and monitored a free SAT one Saturday at the library and gave the kids a written evaluation of their scores. In return, we gave them an opportunity to then advertise and offer their services for any kid that may not have scored very well on that practice SAT. The last program I'll highlight, which was really popular, was when our high school seniors put on a panel and talked to the other kids about senior year. So again, utilizing your kids is always so important. They addressed the college application process, classes to take, how to handle school stress. I think Tyler and I even kind of left the room purposefully for a couple minutes just to give them a chance to talk kids among kids. And I think they really got a kick out of that, the kids presenting and those who were in attendance. Finally, and I apologize if I'm going through this really fast, our final slide shows the electronic resources that we use to communicate with our kids on a continual basis to keep up this sustainable programming. I'm sure you're familiar with Sign Up Genius. We also use MailChimp to email our teens, and I'll also recommend Constant Contact as another good email resource. Tyler showed you an example of one of the Google forms that we used earlier. One of the genius things he did was he puts all our Google forms on all the public catalog computers throughout the branch. So even if we're not there and a kid comes in and says, how do I volunteer at the library? Any librarian in our branch knows to just direct them to the catalog station, and they can open up the Google form and fill out an interest form. Finally, I recommend the text service Remind as a way to quickly communicate with the kids. You can text quick reminders about programs that day, or even if something gets canceled due to weather or some other possibility. One of the drawbacks about Remind is that there is a cap on the free service, and unfortunately we hit that cap pretty quickly and we couldn't continue to use it. That wraps it up for me. I will just say that when you're talking about advertising and marketing, of course, run everything through your county marketing program. Make sure everything is is allowable and permissible. And I'll just reiterate, marketing takes constant work, it's finesse. And like I said, don't be afraid to hit up those friends and family members for marketing and for programming. That's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Tyler and Eileen. I second exactly what was just said about hitting up your friend and partners as well. My husband has talked about mental health multiple times to all of the teens and adults. So next up is Tori.
All righty. Share. Everybody see it okay? Oh, I've realized I can't see any of you. Okay.
Yes,
Let me do one of those. Okay, cool. So we have a program called TACOS. It stands for Teen Advisory Council of Students, but I just refer them to my TACOS. There we go. So it's the Teen Advisory Council of Students. It's a chance for the teens to tell us what they want to see in our programming, what they want just kind of in their own space, because we have a very small teen zone, even though it's not supposed to be called that, but it's fine. We're going to figure it out. And then this is also a service learning opportunity, especially in the past 2 years. Our school system has not had that option to provide service learning, and kids need the service learning in order to graduate. So definitely I've seen a vast uptick in kids wanting to volunteer or wanting to join TACOS for those service learning hours because they're not getting them in school through the ChessPACS program. It's an opportunity to strengthen your community. You can invite guest speakers in. Usually it's a librarian that gives 15-20 minutes talk on something that might be of interest. Our last one was just kind of eating as an adult and not having your teen metabolism anymore. I miss it so much. So it takes a little bit of skill and things to figure out how to actually eat as an adult if you're just living by yourself or you have 4 other people in the house and you don't want to cook for them, but they don't want to cook for you. So how do you manage that? And then it's an organizational skill builder, because when they suggest programs, we have them plan the programs and actually do the thing. So it gives them organizational skills, it gives them job skills, it lets them know that they are in control of their own learning and programming. So how do I keep them coming back? First, we're awesome. Second, it's just a space for teens to critically think about topics without having any pressure attached to it, because it really, it doesn't matter if there's a sustainable program that comes out of TACOS. It doesn't have to be the world's greatest program. It can literally be. A couple years back, there was the Storm Area 51 craze thing, and the kids planned kind of an escape room based off of that idea, and it was a very in the moment, very silly thing. We're probably never going to do another one of those, but they enjoyed it, they loved it, and they felt ownership over that piece of the community that they got to build. So even if the idea is not something that you would normally do or say or think about, give it space to be valid. So if they just want a coloring book day, great, cool. Does not align with any of our strategic plans, nothing like that, but hey, go for it. We can plan a program because this is what you guys asked for. And then food, please feed your teens. They are always hungry, always. Doesn't matter what it is. We give them pizza at TACOS because tacos are too expensive. So they get pizza. Be yourself. Don't try to be cool with teens. They will definitely call you out on it. I used to teach middle and high school, and like the one day that I wore makeup, they're like, "Oh my God, are you going on a date? What's happening?" Like, no, I just decided to do this today. But lesson learned. Be yourself. Don't try to fake it. So this is especially important because I work in a very small rural kind of area where transportation is terrible. It's the worst. If you do not have a car, you cannot move anywhere. And so treat one person showing up the same as you treat 30 people. Be excited, be present, listen to them. Don't be weird about like, oh, my program's a failure because only one person came. No, one person came. That's awesome. advertises in all the places. So don't forget about paper forms. So like if you have a partnership with your local newspaper, put that out. If you have a TikTok, put it on there in a subtle, not like here's just a image for 20 seconds. That's boring. No one watches it. And then have the event in multiple places if you can. I know some kids are zoomed out. We use Discord as kind of a Zoom area, and that seems to be a little bit more, they seem to be more receptive to that. We have a little 360-degree camera / speaker thing. It's called an owl. I love that thing. We hook it up to Discord, and they can be actually in the meeting room and see their friends and talk to them, even if they can't drive the 20 minutes it takes to get anywhere here. Follow through and with what they say and plan. So you might need to nudge them a little and be like, hey, remember that cool idea you had? You want to start talking about it with your other people and start planning, get it on the calendar so we can advertise it. So just kind of nudge them in the direction of, hey, actually plan the thing. Partnerships are definitely key. School librarians, I put just because we're kind of restricted in what we can advertise, especially within our schools. So sometimes it feels a little bit like talking to a brick wall when talking to schools because I get nothing back from it, but it might just be our school systems that way. But it's just one of those things of I'll keep putting it out there and hopefully it does its thing. And then local youth clubs as well. We have a cool hangout space that has the teens, and our issue is getting the teens so they have what we want. So we're forming a partnership with them because they're already there. If we can just like put Discord up and like run it in the background, maybe they'll see and think we're cool. I don't know, we'll see. And then so they do get a service learning hour, which is important. And then feel free to contact me, and then also check out our TikTok. Yes, I am a millennial on TikTok, but as the youngest member of our social media team, it's me, I guess. So check us out. We had a marginally viral video go up that was not intended to do that, but it did. So here we are. All right, that's it for me.
Thank you, Tori, and thank you to all of our panelists. Now, if anyone has questions, please feel free to raise your hand on Zoom, but I do know that we had a few questions pop up in chat. So I'm going to ask one of those first. And the first one I saw was for Jake. And it was, how do you advocate for yourself or other staff to run D&D, given how much prep time and active session time it takes?
So that's a great question. And it sort of ties into, I had like a later question about if I use pre-written adventures. And the answer is yes, because that cuts down on your prep time a lot. So that helps. For D&D, I usually take about a half hour to an hour to prep for a program session. And those sessions usually go for an hour and a half to 2 hours. So I usually don't feel like it's as time intensive as a normal D&D session with my friends would be. So that helps. But I often will ask people after D&D to fill out our program comment cards. And because they like it so much, they don't mind filling it out. And it's really cool seeing their feedback and them telling my bosses directly, this is why I like this program. It also helps that we have a lot of different groups coming to D&D, and our limit is a bigger size. So I think that makes it a little bit easier to justify that half hour to an hour plan. Hopefully that answers it.
Yes, thank you so much. I think there was one more question for you, and that was how many students attend? What's your max enrollment?
So I don't have a max enrollment size. My D&D's drop in. I don't like having registration for programs if I can avoid it. And if it's drop in, I try not to stop anyone from coming, which is why we've had up to 25 people play at one time. For people who are familiar with D&D, 25 is an enormous group. 10 is really more than you should play with. So I got creative and I created my own tweak on the D&D rule set, where rather than having everyone take their own action, they formed groups and nominated someone in the group to take an action for their character. And then I got very brutal with damage so that people would drop and whatnot. So even though there was 25 people, it was 5 groups of 5, and they each got 1 action each per group. So it's 5 actions split between it. It has much more of a con vibe to it, like if you're at a convention, because it's more, I'm not trying to give a good D&D experience, I'm trying to give a taste of D&D so people are curious about it, can learn more about it, and then if they want to experience like intense role playing, story development, different things like that, they can, then I give resources like you should consider this, group, or check this out online, because the library just can't offer what D&D's core is. So I'm more of the demo tape, if you will. And the demo tape can flex around if the group gets bigger. I also do want to say I've been playing D&D for 23 years. So that's one of the reasons I'm able to do that. Kevin shaking his head at it. That's one of the reasons I'm able to do that on the fly in that way, because I've been playing so long that a lot of those concepts are just second nature to me. I don't ever need to look up the book. And if I don't know a rule, I just rule on the fly and we just go with it. So if you're not as comfortable with D&D, I would cap it, if you're a sane person, at 6 or 8. But if you really, really love the idea of having 20 people and that energy, I'm always happy to share how that works. My contact info is on Padlet. I can walk through how that works a little bit better too.
I just want to add to that real quick, and Britt sort of said something in the comments about this too. We, Eileen and I, had a weekly game going, and we do not know anything about D&D, but our teens wanted it. And so what we did was, a lot of our middle schoolers wanted to play, and so we got a couple of teen volunteers who were high school age, and they were the DMs. And they put the games together, and they were really excited to do it. And then they split our kids up into reasonable sized groups, and each took one, and they sat in the same room, but they ran different campaigns. So using your teens who really enjoyed it is also another possible way to run it, where you don't have to put in too much of your own planning and prepping time.
Great, thank you. We are toying with the idea of this, so I will definitely be in touch with you, Jake, because I am useless when it comes to D&D.
Well, I'll tag in really quick and say last MLA, I did do a D&D workshop, and I have the slides somewhere. So if someone wants them, again, get in contact with me over Padlet. I'll dig them up and see if I can email them out.
Yes, Tori.
Let me unmute. I totally forgot to mention this, but yesterday was our first ever Reading Buddies sustainable program thing, where the small children read to the big kids. And we had so much teen interest. I ran out of small kids to give away to read. There were too many teens, and that's a good thing, but also how do we get the little ones interested in it? But the teens want to volunteer, so it's more opportunities you give them to give back, the better, usually.
Okay, I think we have a couple questions about current restrictions and just general restrictions. So I'm going to ask them both to all of our panelists. The first one is, does your county or government or organization have COVID restrictions on food, or restrictions in general on food? And then the other one about restrictions is, what restrictions does your organization have on correspondence with teens?
So I can say for the food in our system, it was before COVID, it was a hard-won battle to get especially other staff on board with the fact that we were letting teens eat in the library. But we tried to choose snacks that I keep in the teen studio that are fairly easy to clean up and not as messy. We use a lot of candy, which is super healthy for them. Since COVID, what we waited for is once mask restrictions in our county went away, then we allowed them to, because obviously they had to take off their mask to eat. And so once that happened, then we were allowed to put out snacks again if we wanted to. So our county allows teams to eat small snacks in the library.
And prepackaged snacks are a way that we bypass a lot of questions too. So, like the packages of crackers and individual packs of cookies and things like that, those we hand out.
Yeah, nothing is ever homemade by anyone or donated from anyone unless it's prepackaged.
And our TLC meetings are on a separate floor from all library services in a contained room, for which we prepare and clean up afterwards. So we really don't get too much flack about serving pizza during TLC meetings.
I love the call for Skittles, more Skittles in the library. I second that. Fruit candy does not get in the carpet as much as chocolate candy does.
What was the second part of your question, Isaiah, about restrictions?
The second one is restrictions on correspondence with teens.
Our system has never given us a hard time about it. I don't like text I don't like have side text conversations with my teams typically, but we do use the tools that Eileen put up to get in contact with them, and we've never had any issues so far.
Yes, and I use the Discord, and they usually just ask questions in the general chat, and then somebody answers them. So there's never true direct. I mean, I had a kid ask me for a recommendation letter, but that was it. But most of the communication is in an open space of Discord. And then for advertising, I technically am not in charge of that. I'm on the social media team, but I'm not part of the marketing team. I wear many hats. So it's Orange Boy is our email blast, and that is handled by our PR person. So they send out emails, but teens don't check their emails ever. So it's one of those things of,
I also make sure to include a supervisor on those monthly email blasts I put out to the PTSA and the teachers and the library specialists, and my list of advertisers, that always includes a supervisor email. And when Tyler and I send out our emails to the kids monthly, advertising volunteer opportunities, supervisors are always included.
Did anyone else have anything to add on those two questions about food restrictions or communication restrictions? And in the meantime, if you have a question, raise your hand, drop it in the chat. We still have some time. Yes, Kevin.
I always have questions. This is one that I'm actually going to pull from a recent KIG meeting that Tori was at, and just throw at the group that, sustained programming is important, but how do you balance that with the strategic plans or operational plans we have that, Tori, you're nodding, that might be asking about things like, workforce development or skills that might not line up with what we are regularly trying to get attendance for.
yes, there was a large push for workforce development and career readiness. I'm like, that's not fun. None of that's fun. So it's one of those things of they really want this, but also teens don't want that. So how do I meet the two?
Well, we certainly don't advertise them as it. I think age helps with that. Like Eileen and I can BS anything to align with like what we needed to, right? Like those skills that I showed in my presentation, like those are the kind of skills you want to see on a resume. Do the kids know that they're getting those skills when I tell them that they're the ones that have to run the TLC meeting? Probably not, but they're gaining those experiences and skills whether they realize it or not. And someone else had mentioned earlier in one of their presentations how, it's education. Oh, it was Isaiah. He said, being educational without them knowing it's educational, and that I think is a lot of what it's about. It's about, giving them skills under the guise of fun, right? And I think that there's a different way you pitch things to your administration and align with your goals and your skills than how you pitch them to the teens themselves. But even if you're not a panelist and want to throw your 2 cents on that, please speak up, because I think that's a question from Kevin that we all like sit with and face, right? And have to answer to eventually one way or another.
I'm a lot like you, Tyler. I'm really good at finding some weird connection to strategic goals and strategic planning. We also have college and career readiness, or career and workforce development, whatever they called it on our strategic plan. I can't remember right now, but that's one of ours as well. And our teens are interested in it. Like, they are super into knowing what they want to do with the rest of their life. But then we create these programs for them. None of them want to come because there's not a way to turn one of those programs into like a sexy exploration of career. But one thing that we've been doing is we've been integrating those ideas into our sustainable programming. We will do what I've been referenced a lot for my sneaky educational attacks, but we'll put those educational tidbits, but then we tell them at the end that, haha, we tricked you, you learned this skill, because our goal is that they are able to market themselves. So like we work it in a fun way that maybe they don't realize, but it's hot button words for us to use with our administration. But then at the end of the activity, you tell them like, now you can put like game design or game moderation as a skill that you have, because gamification is something that's not just in the educational world, but gamification is everywhere at this point. So now you have gamification on your resume. Good for you. Go out and get an amazing job.
Rachel, I see your hands up.
Yeah, firstly, I just wanted to thank y'all for letting me completely take over the chat with my D&D shenanigans. So we're moving into a new building in June and increasing our staff, I think nearly doubling our staff. And so our new strategic plan for programming is tying everything to the library's mission and being really intentional, which is the word that I keep throwing out there. So I guess I've brought this on myself with what we're doing and why we're doing it. So having been part of YALSA's Transforming Teen Services has been great, because I'm tying everything back to connected learning and computational thinking. But then we're running into that operational need, and no, you can't take 2.5 hours every week or even once a month to run D&D, because you are the one who knows all the things and plans all the things. So yeah. But we have a fun little programming checklist where we have to tie everything back to our strategic mission and, turn in all of the other budget and planning and all that fun stuff. But I'm definitely going to be taking some of these slides back to edit that checklist. Yeah, very fun. So thank y'all so much.
Are there any other questions? We have some great things happening in the chat. But if anyone has anything that they want to say out loud, that would be great.
A while ago, I noticed Carmen's hand up and then she put it down. I don't know if that was answered or not.
Carmen, did you have a question?
I did. Actually, I have no experience whatsoever with D&D, but I am interested in learning. How long does it take to master it, would you say? And any resources that you would provide to kind of give me a good intro would be appreciated.
Yeah, sure. So the nice thing about D&D is it's really just an imaginative improv game that has rules to create like fair footing. So mastering it means something completely different depending on how you want to run your game. And the nice thing is that teens are often going to be more interested in the vibe and the feels than if you're getting the rules exactly right. So even though there's 300 pages of rules, those are more references than learning. I know that sounds really intimidating. And the good news is unlike even 10 years ago, because D&D is so much more popular, there's so many resources on learning it now. Off the top of my head, like if you do a quick YouTube search, you can find like people like covering the basics of learning D&D. But like any game, the best way to learn to play is to do it and then as a player, which isn't a fun answer for someone looking at it from a professional lens. I 100% get that. What I would recommend, I'd look at YouTube, see if you can find a group of either people playing online who you can sort of like enjoy, you can listen to in the background, and then some quick, and there's some suggestions in the chat too. Game stores will run demo days and like beginner friendly games a lot. And usually they pick people running those who are going to be better with new players to run them because it's good for their sales. That's a great place. Those are usually free to play at. If you like, I do have like, I wish I pulled this presentation up from 2 years ago because I have 4 slides on how to learn how to play D&D quickly. And I don't remember exactly what they said, but it's a combo of like, see if you can try to get in the game. That's the best way to learn. When you're running it, the first time you're running it, it's not about being an expert. It's about making it fun and fair for everyone. So if you're getting the rules wrong, but if you're getting the rules wrong for everyone, it doesn't matter. That's 100% fine. And the other thing that I would recommend too is like there's beginner boxes that specifically are written to be like a crash course, almost like Cliff Notes version. That's the route I would go because they walk you through, you're new at this, don't worry about these things, do these things first. Oh, next time we'll introduce this thing. And it's a really like easing you into it. Hopefully that helps some. Feel free, again, my info's on Padlet. Feel free to shoot me an email because I won't remember to reply to people in this chat when I get to work, but I can send some other resources too. I'm happy to do that.
Great, thank you so much.
Sorry, I'm trying to like read everything. You all are like blowing up the chat and I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. There was a really good suggestion by Reiner. Sign up for a library D&D game. Use someone else's services. That's great. Yeah, chat is moving like a Twitch stream. Also, like my brain today is not as fast as it normally is for some reason. So it's like reading is taking it out of me. So we have 1 minute. If there is any last minute question that you want to just throw out into the world, now is your time. But while we're waiting on that last question, please don't forget to sign in so that you get credit for this session. Thank you to all of our presenters, all of the people that contributed in the chat and in the conversation. I always love talking about sustainable programming, but also games. Gaming is always a fun chat any time of day. So thank you all. Our next sessions coming up, I have this pulled up, but I have too many tabs open, just like in my mind. Our next sessions are 3A, programming step by step, and 3B is advanced readers advisory. So you can find those links on that sheet that Carrie sent out. And those will be getting started in about 5 minutes. So I will